right, Amanda.
Yes.
For anybody who's been hiding under a rock for the last 4 years, would you like to tell us a little bit about Moderna?
Sure, absolutely. Hopefully I can tell people something that they don't know about us. So we are about a 14-year-old organization. We're essentially like a mid-stage a biotech company. Obviously, you guys have heard about us. We did, help with the pandemic, and we did create a COVID vaccine. But we're really a unique organization, and so in the biotech space, we're kind of one of a kind. We're a platform-based organization, and so we have an mRNA technology that sits on a platform, which then enables us to create vaccines and therapies and medicines in a variety of different diseases and I don't know how to call the vaccines, but I guess in the infectious disease space, to be able to treat whether it's preventatively or after the fact. And we've actually grown. We have 47 clinical trials currently, and we're in just a variety of therapeutic areas. And so we're well beyond a COVID company. And I think that's the key point I'm trying to make here in a very long-winded way. But we've got an RSV vaccine. We've got a flu trial. We're working on COVID-flu combos. So maybe you can go and just get one shot one day. But then we're also in many rare diseases. And one of our things that we're really excited about right now is we have a personalized cancer vaccine to treat melanoma. And we believe it also can have potential treatment for other forms of cancers as well, which is like, we really feel good and hope that that's going to.
So I'm going to start with thank you. Yeah. Okay, so you guys experienced tremendous growth. I think you went from something like 500 to 5,500 employees. Tell us a little bit about what that felt like. How did that impact your talent strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just going back, we're a 14-year-old company. So when the pandemic hit, we're a very mission-centric organization. And so we knew we had this technology. We'd never put a product on the market, mind you. But because we believe so deeply in helping patients at the end, there was no way we couldn't look at, our technology and say, we've got to go for it. We've got to try to help the world. People are dying. People are getting really ill. We've got to try to help. But at that point in time, we had about 800 employees in our organization. We had very few clinical trials. I laughed one time because I went back and I looked, and I think we had 50 employees in clinical development when I first started with the organization. We have 1,000 today in clinical development because you need a whole bunch of capabilities to be able to do a late-stage clinical trial. We had no commercial organization, so you name it. We didn't have, a lot of the capabilities. And so what we really had to do is figure out how do you, in warp speed, really create an organization out of nothing. Not nothing, I shouldn't say that. That's not fair, because there are a lot of great things, but out of a very small base.
And also very specialized skills.
Very specialized skills, yes, very small base, new capabilities that just didn't even exist in our organization. And so we really had to figure out, how do we take all the goodness that existed within the early years of Moderna and really figure out how to rapidly accelerate and scale that in very, very short order. And so it's funny, when I thought a lot about how did it evolve our talent strategies, it really came down to the scaling question, right? How do you do it at scale? And especially that magnitude of scale.
Yeah. Why talent intelligence? What exactly were you trying to solve, and how did you end up thinking that technology was going to solve your problem?
Yeah. So can I tell you a little funny story?
Yeah, please do.
So when we started on this journey, it actually wasn't about talent intelligence. And so because we were trying to scale, and we had infrastructure to support an organization of 800, we didn't have an infrastructure to grow by 5,000 employees. And so we really started this journey on how do you just digitize parts of the talent acquisition process to be able to create some of that infrastructure to be able to do it at scale. And then, we've always had a very intentional digital-first mindset mindset in our organization. And so, when you come into the organization, one of the things that you'll hear is we're actually, kind of a technology company in the biotech space. And so as we were trying to digitize and build digitally, and mind you, it's 2020, right, when this whole journey started. And so, yeah, AI was a thing, people understood it, but it wasn't what it is today. So we're trying to find solutions to digitize. And, a bunch of people that we had brought in were like, hey, have you heard of Eightfold? Hey, you should go check out Eightfold as you're trying to do this. And that's actually what started our intelligence journey, because then we started, collaborating with Eightfold and started really understanding more and more about what talent intelligence is and how, an AI-based, platform can really help accelerate that. And for us, what felt really real for us is we put our talent and our culture at the center of everything that we do. And so we knew that we had to make sure we hired the right people through this, because that's our belief, is the right people create innovation, and the right culture helps to drive, the mission forward. And so when you're bringing on a bunch of people, they don't understand the culture, but they're trying to hire very rapidly, they're naturally, does anybody have hiring managers like, I know this person, I worked with them in the past, let's just go hire them? Yeah. So we got a lot of that in the early days, and those aren't always the best fits for your organization, right? And so talent intelligence enables you to look at talent in a very different way to be able to bring that all together and then have the best hire for your organization.
So tell us a little bit, what kind of transformation did you go through?
Oh gosh, and it's not have gone through, it's continued to go through, to be honest. And so, we obviously, as I mentioned, we had very little infrastructure, or we had the right infrastructure for an organization of that, size and that, tenure. And so we had to very rapidly scale that. The other thing that really became very true for us, going back to how we think about our organization, is we are this very mission-centric, culture-driven organization. But in the early days, that lived in the head of the leaders and the employees. It was the unwritten rules. It was the norms. People understood how this organization run. They understood how you behaved, what you needed to do, what good managers just understood.
Tribal knowledge.
Yes, exactly. Great way to say it, much more succinctly. And so one of the biggest pieces of the transformation that we went through during this phase was actually getting it all written down, actually articulating it in a way that could truly scale. We now have 1,200 managers. There's no way you could take 1,200 managers and that rapidly, institutionalize all of that knowledge, all of that understanding. And so it really became about how we created the infrastructure, the systems, the tools to institutionalize what was the tribal knowledge. And that became the base of just about everything that we did in the talent space, which is how do we really pull this through in a way it can scale our mindsets and our culture.
Now, one of the things that was interesting when we prepped for this session, you talked a lot about change management. So let's start first about how did you sell this to the leadership of going in the direction of talent intelligence as part of the digitalization of HR, or talent acquisition, I should say.
Yeah. So I'm going to admit something here. I work for the best company with an amazing CEO who already gets how important talent is to his organization. And so I say that knowing not everybody has that same privilege and benefit. And so I didn't have to do much selling, to be honest. One of our key mindsets in our organization is about learning. And, what we tell people is you don't actually have to be the smartest, you just have to learn the fastest. And with something like AI, talent intelligence, that pulls through our leadership. They're learning it on their own because they understand the importance of it in the organization. Now, with that comes a different set of challenges. That means I need to figure out what the right solution is, and then I got to be accountable to finding the right solutions to be able to bring in the right people. into the organization. And so that really became the question, is how do I sell that? And I'm just a big believer is that you sell it through proof, right? You can, in theory, articulate all of the advantages. You can sell, you can do, theoretical calculations on what it can do for you from an efficiency standpoint, from a quality standpoint, but the real, kind of point comes when you can actually prove how it did that and how it's going to keep doing that. So again, I had the benefit of being able to bring it in pretty seamlessly, but every day I am showing, through the quality of the people that we're hiring, through the efficiency of how our talent acquisition team is being able to use it in the flow of their work to really, find the best talent for hiring managers. And for everybody, that then uses it, you then create a champion for it, right? When they get the success, they become your own champions. And so then you don't have to keep selling it.
Keep establishing credibility. So talk to us a little bit about what were some of the steps you used in rolling this out, especially because you were rolling it out and growing rapidly and hiring at the same time.
Yeah. So obviously, I wish I could say we had this amazing process. And this is where I just fully admit in transparency, we didn't. We kind of put it into the organization, and we said, go try it. It's going to be great. And, that then takes, a lot of hand-holding as you help people navigate through it. But again, change is unnatural by nature, but once you get people to do it once and they do it twice, and then they start to say, okay, now this is just the way of working, and they start doing it over and over again, then it starts to create some of the adoption. If I'm being honest, one of the things I would have done differently is probably taken a little bit more time and been a little bit more thoughtful than we were. But we're a company that acts with urgency. We pivot fearlessly. So we're like, let's just go. If we don't get it quite right, we'll, use that data, we'll pivot, and we'll figure out how to tweak that to make it work better. And it's just a little bit of how we work too.
So just for context for everyone, how big is your TA team?
How big is the TA team? It's about 40 employees at this point.
Okay. And then my other question was, you talked about it being a continual journey, a continual transformation.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit more about that so people know what else to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, just tenets of our organization is we've scaled so rapidly, and even if you go back to the beginning of our organization before the crazy COVID years, the company doubled in size almost every year. And because we're a platform-based company, once you start proving that the platform works, the growth just continues to happen. And then you kind of you have that internal, combined with the external environment, right? Which we also know is growing, and changing very rapidly as well, especially with the technology that's coming on board. So we've really adopted this very intentional mindset around AI in our organization. We've actually we have an AI academy that we've created, and all of our senior leaders have been through it, and we're requiring all of our employees to go through AI Academy. And we're trying to build our organization for this, kind of crazy growth that we're going to hopefully go on as we prove more and more of the platform, and be very intentional about how we grow the organization. We don't want to, become a 100,000 person organization. We're quite happy at 6,000. Obviously, we probably have to grow more than that, but it becomes all about how do we build and rebuild the organization. And so that's the constant transformation that we're going on. We're always looking at what's, 10 feet, 100 feet, 1,000 feet in front of us, and trying to think about not just what are the skills that we think we need today, but if we try to imagine the growth that we're going on, the scale that we're going on, where the technology is going, and how we can build that back into our organization and the way everybody does work, what are then the skills you need 2 years from now? What are the skills you're going to need 4 years from now? And how do you start bringing that in now from a talent acquisition standpoint? And then on the development front, we're constantly in this mindset of how do we reskill our organizations to build those skills that we know are going to be very real 2 years from now. So it's really this constant transformation journey. We call it the build, rebuild of our organization of don't just look at today, think about, where everything is going and how much things are going to change 2 years from now, and start leading your organization, building your organization towards that.
Now, in terms of this AI Academy, is it mostly focused within talent acquisition? What was the purpose? What was the driver behind this? Is this something you recommend others look into as well?
Yeah. So it was, again, because we're such a learning organization, I do think we were early on in the understanding that AI was coming fast and furious into the organization, and that our ability to continue to innovate, be the company that we want to be, again, with culture being so critical to innovation and the talent being so critical to innovation, we needed to start thinking, very quickly on how do we accelerate all of our employees' learning around AI, around what AI is and how they can adopt it as part of their work. And so we've built different iterations as we're learning, with it. And it wasn't centered around talent acquisition at all. It was centered around
The business.
And how do you achieve the mission, and how do you leverage the power of this amazing technology that is entering our world to rethink how you fundamentally do everything. And so yes, I highly, highly recommend that everybody thinks about how they upskill their entire employee base in AI, because what's come out of this are just the most amazing use cases, and we're getting innovation from up and down our organization, and people saying, wait, what if we used AI to do this in the flow of our work? And that goes into, the HR space and talent acquisition space. And so now we've got a whole organization that's generating ideas for us on how they can bring AI into our flow of work.
You're really embracing AI as it involves the roles in the business.
Yeah.
What, if you were to look back, what practical advice would you give for our audience? Like if you were going to do this all over again. What practical advice would you give?
A couple of things. So the first thing that I would say, and I don't know that this, necessarily was true in the depths of our organization, but I know it's true out there in reality, is don't be afraid of it. AI is awesome. And the power of it is awesome, but I know that there are so many people who are afraid of, is it going to, I'm sure people have employers who are like afraid that their job is going to get replaced. But it's not, right? Figure out how to tell the story to your organization about how it's going to enhance. Think about what talent strategies you can deploy to then, upskill and reskill your employee base. Because AI can't do everything. And so you still need employees. You just need them maybe in a different way, and to think about how you can do that and start bringing the organization along. My practical advice from our lessons were, go a little slower than we did in your implementation. I think sometimes we are so quick that we just didn't spend quite enough, at the beginning in our implementation and, our talking to the organization, that we really planned through some of the pitfall areas that we probably just could have, gone a little slower to go fast. In the end, and then make it work for your organization. Every company is very different, right? I told you guys all the Moderna story, but not every company has the same culture, the same mission, the same operating model. And there is a way, the beautiful thing about talent intelligence and about the AI systems in Eightfold is there is a way that it works for every organization. So figure out what's true for you, and then make that the core, kind of tenets of how you adopt it and how you implement it in your organization.
So you talked a lot about, the metrics, efficiencies. You talked about finding the right talent, adjacent skills, upskilling, some of the other things you're doing. How do you define success for yourself? And what are some of the additional areas that you're looking to expand talent intelligence into now that you've, I guess, hopefully done all the hiring that you needed to?
We're never done hiring, that's for sure. We actually joke because we thought this was going to be a slow year because we thought we've built up the organization and now we're embracing, more and more AI. So we're like, we just don't need to grow quite at that same pace. And, to date, we've hired almost 500 employees. So
to date this year
to
so
date
far?
this year, yes. So that's our slow year.
And it's May 15th. Wow.
Yes, so that's our slow year. But in all seriousness, what's next for us in all of this is, I really do think we've hired so many people externally. And we now have this huge base of employees coming on, a year, 2 years, 3 years with the organization. And it's really, really important that we start thinking about what we do about internal mobility and really transitioning our talent strategy to be more about the internal mobility of our talent. Again, if what's at the base of it is cultural fit is what's right for us. And to answer your question around then how we measure success. We measure success and quality of hire. I actually have told the talent acquisition team, I don't care about time to fill, only in the standpoint of it quiets a little noise from hiring managers, and so I just don't want to, have to, kind of listen to them because that's their base, measure. But as a company and with alignment with our leadership team, the quality of the hire is really the ultimate measure of success. And the beautiful thing about a talent intelligence system is hopefully you can get the speed and the quality at the same time. But quality eats time every day for us. But now we've hired all these people that we think are high quality, and we want to embrace that. We know they're the right cultural fit, and so we really, I think one of the things that's evolving very rapidly in our talent strategy is really accelerating that internal mobility. And so really being able to use talent intelligence to find, who are our employees, that have the right skills, be able to move them around, think about how do you start mapping career paths for them based off of skills. It's a really exciting proposition and one that I'm really excited to be able to give back to our employees who have just been, kind of doing so much.
In essence, cultivating them in a way.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Excellent. Any last bits of advice as we close the session?
Just go for it. Go for it. Get in front of your
Don't be afraid. Jump head in.
Don't be afraid. Jump in. Get in front of your leadership. And just, if they don't understand it, start educating them. You won't regret it, I promise you.
My other piece of advice is definitely reach out to people like Amanda. She is definitely available during lunch and the breaks. Get some advice. I know she's championed this for Moderna, and she can help give you some tips.